It's your brother Talib here. So I just recently found out that there has been protests in Germany, massive protests on a large scale against the coronavirus. And my advice, my spiritual advice in this type of situations is to exercise patience, as-sabr, and the middle road. So I just wanted to share a few teachings that I've learned, and hopefully they can be helpful. Anything good that I say come from Allah, anything bad come from my own self. So I apologize for that, astaghfirullah. So the thing is, we tend to view the world in extremes. One thing that I've noticed very much is this. So when I heard many spiritual teachers talking about this going beyond good and bad, or life is not about good and bad, it's not about good and evil, I didn't understand why. So I heard some, for example, Buddhist monks talk about transcending good and bad. I did not understand why. I first thought that they were actually being kind of hypocritical, because there's obviously something that is right in Buddhist teachings, just like there are in Christianity, Islam. But over time I have started to understand why they speak so much about this, because the problem is we live in extremes. We all the time live in extremes. If like this, if I am right, it automatically means that you're wrong. If you're right, then I am wrong. If you're a winner, then I am a loser. And therefore I need to win so that you lose. It's either or. It's either winning or losing. It's either good or bad. If I win this argument, then I'm right and you lost, you are wrong. We view this world like this. And this is very problematic from a spiritual point of view, because the right path is the middle road. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a hadith, he drew 5 lines in the sand. He pointed to the middle line and said that the middle line is the right path, or the Siratul Mustaqim. In another narration of the same hadith, he went further and pointed to the 2 lines to the left and the 2 lines to the right and said that these are paths of shaitan. So the middle road, also a teaching in Buddhism, the middle road, in ancient Egyptian mysticism known as ma'at, or balance, is the right path. So I urge for us to not live in extremes. Either we are in this extreme of fear, we are afraid of everything, we think that we are gonna be infected by the virus right now, and we think that every human being is a threat and everything is a threat. That's not a nice place to be. Or we go to the other extreme. It's all fake. There is no virus. It's 5G. It's this and that. I haven't seen anyone who is infected. So we all the time, it's either extreme fear or it's extreme denial. And I would argue that both paths lead to suffering. Both paths have truth in them, but if you go to these kinds of extremes, it will ultimately lead to suffering. You see, surrendering to Allah, everything is by the will of Allah, including viruses. There are hadiths on pandemic diseases. There is a hadith where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that Allah doesn't create the disease until He also creates the cure. So for every disease that Allah creates, Allah also creates the cure. When will people find the cure to this? Only Allah knows. So putting the fingers to the ears, wishing that the virus is not a reality, is not living in surrender to Allah. Wishing that reality would be something that we want it to be is not living in a state of surrender to Allah. That is living in the state of resistance. Also, completely living in fear is also not living in a surrender to Allah. That's to live in a state of shaitan, because shaitan is fear, and we are imagining a lot of things that are not real. So I would suggest a balanced approach. This is what I do myself. try to be careful, try to take the measures that are appropriate to take. But don't live in fear. Don't go to extremes. I don't wish this for anyone. I don't wish this virus for anyone. I know people who have got infected in my family. I don't wish this disease to anyone. And I wish that Allah heals the planet and let us find the cure very quickly. Only Allah can decide the time when the scientists are going to find the cure. So this is the advice I recommend. You know, this is a difficult time for everyone. We all suffer, and everyone has their opinion on the coronavirus. Every person has their opinion on the coronavirus. I would say that's not important. Probably a lot of the opinions are based on some level of truth. What's important is what we can do right now, and I can take a balanced approach, a middle road. Balance, not going to one extreme or the other extreme, because both of those paths are going to lead to more suffering. So, are the protests right or wrong? The honest answer is that I don't live in this kind of dualistic way that either the government is right or the protesters are wrong. There's truth in both. There's truth in the protests. There are things that I think are real. For example, the will to live under freedom. I agree with that. The will to not have a big brother controlling you. I agree with that. The need and necessity of showing governments that you cannot do whatever you want to us people. We are born free. I agree with that too. Personally, I agree. But, I mean, going to a place where there's millions of people, and if there are a couple of them who are infected, there's a large probability that this is going to spread more. So this is kind of denying just the reality of the virus. So, you see, my advice, which I practice myself, is to take the middle road. This is Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also found in other traditions. And that just means that we don't view the world so much in right or wrong, or if I'm right then this is wrong. It's either a hoax or it's constant fear. There's truth in both. You see, it's not either the government who is right or the protest. We have to choose. We don't have to choose. There's truth in both. I just urge a balanced approach and patience. Patience, a sabr. Ya sabr. Things are gonna get better, inshallah. And also, to a very large degree, since I'm on the mystical path, I believe that, or to me it's a reality that all of this world is a reflection of our inside. And I think that what we see in the protests, really, what people really are protesting against is their own inner fear. They are protesting against themselves, that they are afraid. And this is a way for them to show to themselves that, look, I am not afraid. That is what people really are protesting against, their own fears. And to a certain degree, it's a beautiful thing to face our fears. Let's just not go to extremes. This is my advice. Hopefully this is helpful. Assalamu alaikum.